It's a city made famous by crime, corruption, and the sound of a gun. An era fueled by an insatiable desire for fast times, jazz music, and illegal alcohol. It's an age lost to time, but if you look hard enough, it's still possible to find the hidden world of Al Capone, Chicago. They call me Lefty, and this is my town, Chicago. It's my job to take you on a tour through history, to the secret places that made this city famous. Oh yeah, the Loop's still here, Wrigley Field, and the streets have the same names. But the guys who used to run this town, they're long gone.
Listen up, a toast to me.
Gangsters, G-men, rum runners. This used to be their domain. This is where they lived and died.
Happy Valentine's Day, boys, from Al Capone!
You would have loved them back then. The whole damn town loved them. Why? These guys had the one thing that everybody wanted: illegal alcohol. Behind the bustle of this city's streets are secrets, hidden places where the past comes alive. Peel back the layers of concrete, strip away the fresh coat of paint, look behind the facade, and with the help of the city's best actors, you'll see how things used to be. It was here. This was the heart of it all. 2222 South Wabash, the near south side, right off the L tracks. It ain't much to look at now, but in 1921, this vacant lot was home to the Four Deuces Club, ground zero for mob activity in Chicago. It was operated by two of the city's top gangsters, a good fellow by the name of Johnny Torrio, and his main mobster in training, a young guy from Brooklyn. You probably heard of him, Al Capone. Capone moved to Chicago in 1919, on the run for a murder rap. They called him Scarface because of the 3-inch beauty mark that ran down his left cheek. A badge of honor won in a knife fight after he insulted a guy's sister back in Coney Island. At the Four Deuces, Capone went from being a nobody to a very big somebody.
Who? Tell these guys who bought that outfit. You guys like that outfit? I bought it.
Al Capone made Chicago. He gave it style, with a cold beer and a shot of high-octane booze on the side. And during Prohibition, when the good people of Chicago said they were thirsty, Al Capone came running with a fire hose. Capone's Four Deuces Club was a gangster's paradise. On the first floor was a saloon, speakeasy is what they called them, fully stocked with liquor from Capone's secret breweries. On the second floor was the bookie's office, where you could conveniently place your bet. A gambling hall discreetly hidden behind a steel door was on the third floor. And the attic? Well, that was an old-fashioned brothel. If anyone knew how to throw a party, it was Al Capone.
It was a place where anything went, as far as you could. Liquor, of course, Prohibition was on. You get top shelf liquor. Nice young ladies to entertain you. There was entertainment, good music, good food. It was a place to be seen if you were a young Chicagoan in those days.
In the early days, it always wasn't smooth sailing for Capone. One time he drank a little bit too much and he ran his car into a parked taxi right here at Randolph and Wabash. He told the arresting officer that he would get him fired. He said that any case brought up against him would be unhealthy for the prosecutor. By 1923, Capone had half of City Hall on his payroll. But he also had a problem, a big problem. His name was William Deaver, the newly elected reform-minded mayor. Deaver promised to clean up Chicago, and that included the bootleggers. He hired a new chief of police, Morgan Collins, a one-time medical student and former saloon owner. On more than one occasion, the cops raided the Four Deuces Club and had it padlocked.
I'm John Torrio. I ran the Four Deuces in Chicago. Lived a full life, 75 years. That never would have happened if I'd stayed in Chicago. I can't tell you how many times I had to hit the deck at the Deuces because some numbnuts thought it was going to take over the world. I was glad to see Al have all the headaches.
Capone chose to hang his hat several miles away from the action, at the intersection of 71st and Prairie on the south side. 7244 South Prairie Avenue, to be exact. It's hard to believe that this old place was home to the country's most famous gangster, his wife May, and his mother Teresa.
Prairie Avenue around 18th Street was, for many years in the second half of the 19th century, rows and rows of fabulous mansions built by some of the most wealthy men in Chicago, the merchant princes, the titans of finance. But Capone moved into a more modest section of Prairie Avenue, kind of a working class blue collar neighborhood, purchased a very modest red brick building, which he equipped with iron bars on the bottom. It is said that at one particular time, federal agents went and knocked on his door, and he opened the door wearing a pink apron and was cooking pasta. He said, "Hi, boys, you want to have a little bite to eat? Come on in." But there was constant surveillance of that house on Prairie Avenue. The Prairie Avenue house is where Capone kept the family. His boy Sonny, wife May, various relatives lived very quietly and very modestly in this house, even with the presence of a car parked right out in front with federal agents keeping the house under surveillance.
To avoid being fingered by his neighbors, Capone went by the name Mr. Brown. 34 families shared the block with Mr. and Mrs. Brown. They were 3 police officers, a clothing manufacturer, a druggist, a grocer, and a retired Presbyterian minister. Unknown to his neighbors, the world's most famous gangster lived right next door. And his life of crime was just beginning. When we come back, Al Capone does everything in his power to keep Chicago under his control, keeping the liquor flowing at any cost. What people don't understand is how popular Al Capone was in Chicago during the 1920s. If he went to the ballpark, it was like the Babe Ruth of gangsters was there. If he took friends to the movies, the show stopped. And when Al Capone walked down the street, everybody knew his name.
You need to be there when it's happening to understand why I want it to get done fast.
During Prohibition, when Chicago wanted a drink, Al Capone and his boys did whatever it took to help.
Because the longer the truck's there, the more suspicious it's going to look.
People wanted to drink. They wanted good times. And of course, that spawned the gangster. Remember that the gangster's element, whether it was Capone or whatever his rivals would say, were only supplying goods and services that the public wants. In this case, the public wanted liquor. They wanted girls, at least businessmen did. They wanted good times. They wanted to be able to bet at a racetrack. They wanted to be able to bet on the Dempsey-Tunney fight. They wanted to be able to bet on this and that. And so the outfit, in this case, organized crime, was able to provide the goods and services through particularly Al Capone.
Despite having hundreds of cops on his payroll, thousands of gallons of illegal liquor were confiscated. So Capone came up with clever ways to hide the making and distribution of his booze.
We'll put a coffin in there. We'll lay all the bottles in the coffin.
That's a good idea.
who's gonna
That's a
stop
good
us?
idea.
Good idea.
Who's going to stop a hearse?
Hey, yeah, nobody wants to get involved with that.
Right?
The embalming rooms of Chicago's cemeteries made the perfect distilleries. The cemeteries aside, Capone kept the real business of making booze closer to home, on the South Side in Little Italy. A lot of the old joints are still around, though you never recognize them. See, most of the people who moved into this neighborhood back in the 20s were right off the boat. They had nothing. No food, no money, no clothes. Sure, they got jobs, but it was just enough to get by. Capone gave them a leg up, a chance to make something of themselves. All they had to do was put a still in their basement. Nothing hard about that. And once they did, it was like a money fountain.
On the west side, in the Italian neighborhoods, everybody was making it in those days, and everybody was drinking it. It was the ultimate scofflaw, Prohibition.
The making of booze was only half the equation. You had to have a place to sell it, too. Places like the Green Mill Cocktail Lounge at 4802 North Broadway. It looks pretty much the same, like it did back when they used to whisper speakeasy.
Chicago in the 1920s was an amazing place. Prohibition, I think, in many ways touched the lives of almost every single Chicagoan at that time. There were 10,000 speakeasies churning in Chicago. And in the nightclub districts of the city is where people would congregate to drink this illegal booze that came from all over.
Like everything else, somebody always had to try and ruin the party. And in this case, it was a G-man who went by the name of Elliot Ness. Ness and 9 of his cronies, called the Untouchables, had a couple of offices in the old Federal Building.
Chicago was a great place to work, the Federal Building. There was a nice little deli down the street. I can't remember the name. Hell, somebody told me Capone owned it. What didn't he own?
Money, alcohol, and power. They were the aphrodisiacs that fueled the passions in a cast of violent characters the likes of which Chicago had never seen. The battles between the North Side and South Side gangs would soon make them legends. There was Big Jim Colosimo.
Whatever you want, you can have. Booze, the dames, good food, drugs, whatever you want, if you got the money. I mean, 50 cents can just about buy you anything down there.
Johnny Torrio.
The Northsiders, they tried to bump me off, yeah. Tried to hit me, and what happened? Jamokes. It killed my chauffeur and my dog. It was terrible. I really miss that dog.
Jaime Weiss.
Wojciechowski. I'm Polish. I ain't Jewish. I come here, people call me Wodzi, Wadzikow, Wujabada, so I picked Weiss. It's plain, it's simple. The guys I work with, they ain't too bright. Weiss.
Dion Dino Banyan.
I think my reputation's overstated. I'm a businessman. I have a flower shop. I don't give a busman's fart for Al Capone or any of those other gangsters.
Bugs Moran.
North side's much cleaner. South side, it's scum down there. It's dirty, filthy. Ugh. That's why everybody likes to come up on the north side. It's better up there. Cleaner, more class. Much more class.
And of course, the main man, a 25-year-old ruffian who ran the city, Al Capone.
Yeah, Al Capone and Chicago will always be together. When you think of Chicago, you think of Capone. You understand what I'm saying?
Coming up next, the secret places in Al Capone's Chicago are flooded with booze and blood in the nation's most violent gang turf war. With all that money and booze floating around in Al Capone's Chicago, it was just a matter of time before somebody got whacked. Like everything else in the mob, they kept it all in the family. The first big hit happened here at Colosimo's Cafe, 2126 South Wabash, the most opulent cafe the city had ever seen. The club opened in 1910, when it was still legal to have a drink in Chicago. It was owned by Big Jim Colosimo, the city's most powerful gangster. Both Capone and Johnny Torrio worked for Big Jim, and whatever Colosimo said was the law.
He opened a very famous cafe called Colosimo's Cafe, and in the beginning he was catering to the usual levee hangers-on like Izzy the Rat Bukowski, but later on some of the most famous opera impresarios of the day and some of the famous journalists would come into his cafe. It became quite the thing to do. George Ade, Clarence Darrow, Ring Lardner, these lions of Chicago journalism would go in and eat their famous chicken Vesuvio and quaff their lager beer with the hospitality of their gracious host, James Colosimo.
Before Prohibition, I had a legitimate gambling house running right out of this bar. Okay, you wanted good food, good booze, hey, some ladies. We had the best. You know, we didn't have any of this turf fighting. We didn't have to. We had it all right here, okay? We had a nice bar on the first floor. You wanted to put some money on the numbers or bet the ponies, you know, you went upstairs. Now, on the third floor, we had the nicest casino in all Chicago. And up top, the dolls up there would make your eyeballs pop out. It was all good. This booze business came along, this whole town went to hell.
Although Colosimo continued to serve booze in his cafe at the start of Prohibition, he wanted no part of the manufacture and distribution of alcohol. Without Big Jim's blessing, Capone and Torrio were powerless to expand their booze business. By 1920, a year after Prohibition, Torrio and Capone were running the Four Deuces Club. The only guy keeping them from running the crime rackets on the entire South Side was Colosimo.
A toast to me.
We tried to reason with him, but Jim did not want to have anything to do with the booze business. He said it was undignified. Well, what could I say? We tried to get him to change his mind.
Oh, come on.
On May 11th, 1920, Colosimo was waiting for a visitor right here in the vestibule of his cafe. His bookie and chef heard two shots, and they came running to the front of the building.
Jimmy, what the heck?
The Don of Chicago's good times lay dead, a bullet through the brains. The newspapers said that an era ended on this spot, and a more violent chapter in the city's history was about to begin. You know what? They were right. Colosimo's murder was never solved, though the boys on the street knew that Torrio and Capone hired a New York hitter named Frankie Yale to do the job. It was the first time that Capone used violence to get what he wanted, and what he wanted was Chicago, all of it. By 1924, Capone had a stranglehold on the rackets across the South Side. What he didn't have was the lucrative North Side. The North Side was run by a former safecracker named Dion Dini O'Banion, a real tough guy with a soft spot for flowers.